Today we're discussing out-of-hours provision service in Newton Abbot area. So, provision of out-of-hours is a requirement from the Royal College of Vet Surgeons, which also means that in this country, well, it's the only country in the world really that actually stipulates there is a legal requirement for vet practices to provide out-of-hours service, either by themselves or by somebody else. So, which means that when your vets are not open during the non-opening times, when you ring them, there should be some sort of system in place to provide out-of-hours. In the past, it is quite traditional for the vet practice to be providing their own out-of-hours. And let's say if they were, say, a 4-vet practice, and it is not unusual for the 4 vets to do a 1-in-4 rota, to be on call every 4th night or every 4th weekend, and so on and so forth. So as practices got bigger, it became 5, 6, 7, even 10 vets, then it is not uncommon for 1 vet or even 2 vets, because of the size of the practice, to be on call every night, depending on the rota. So maybe 1-in-4, 1-in-5, 1-in-6 sort of rota. And sometimes we also think about the smaller practices. If there was only, say, 3 vets, it means they're doing a 1-in-3 rota. And a lot of people do not know that, but let's say it gets even smaller for a 2-vet practice or a 1-vet practice. That vet still has to provide an out-of-hours service, because it is a legal requirement. So, as you can imagine, being on call can be quite tricky. So it is not unusual for the newer graduates these days to consider wanting a better work-life balance, and hence they may find jobs that do not do their own out-of-hours, emergency call-outs, a bit more attractive. And there stems the sort of other branch of medicine called emergency medicine, whereby there can be a center like Vets Now that is just providing out of hours only, but usually for a collective of practices, or even practices they form their out of hours service. For example, like Eve's Axonia Vet Emergency Services in Exeter, that they actually have the out of hours service that covers a lot of different vet practices that uses them. So those vet practices, what they do is that they pay them a certain fee every month to do the out of hours, and any of those customers of those vet practices who are in that group of emergency services that is used by this company would be diverted to them. So it is hard to say what is better, what is not. On one hand, you have people who enjoy going to the same location where they go in the daytime to see potentially even their own vets for out-of-hours service. On the other hand, you have the out-of-hours service whereby everybody is specifically trained to do out-of-hours for emergencies and things like that, and they are actually just hired for the job themselves. So rather than having a day job like what your vet may be doing in the normal daytime, plus out-of-hours at night, potentially impinging on the so-called quality of life, work-life balance issue, they have people specifically just for out-of-hours. So one would argue that they will be fresher and they'll be better for the job if you have to call someone out at 2 in the morning. It's someone who is well rested in the day, and a vet that is attending the out-of-hours service would be much fresher. So there are pros and cons to both. What we also know is that with the sort of traditional model whereby vets, they do their own out-of-hours, there's also been linked to quite a high sort of a rate of depression, work-life balance issues and things like that. So on one hand, you can get the more so-called traditional vets saying, we are vets, we come into this job knowing that we should be doing out-of-hours, and the younger generation who is now graduating, they are just being a little bit wimpy, a little bit useless, because they're not embracing this out-of-hours culture. But on the other hand, if it is linked to sort of a work-life balance issue causing people to leave the profession because of the out-of-hours issue, maybe the younger generation is actually smarter to say that, listen, I do like being a vet, but I don't want to burn myself out, and I do want to have a good work-life balance. So maybe I'll go to practices without out of hours, because I actually want to stay longer in the profession as a vet, compared to the high dropout rate of vets in the current sort of climate, so to speak. Whether it's purely due to out of hours only, it's really hard to say, but that certainly is a factor. Which brings me to the next interesting point. It's like, why are we the only country in the entire world that stipulates it's a legal requirement to provide an out-of-hours service, whether it's done by ourselves or by another practice? Say, for example, in Australia, you own a vet practice, you shut at 5. At 5:01, when somebody rings up, it's literally no longer a problem. They just need to ring somewhere else that's actually open, and they have to sort themselves out. So as for the vets, as you can imagine, there is a good work-life balance. So let's say you're an accountant or a plumber, or you work in Tesco's. When you finish work on time, at a stipulated hour that you say you finish work, you're actually able to switch off. You're actually able to do what you want to do. And certainly there's some on-calls here and there, like plumbers and things like that, and they do a very, very good job. But imagine a job that you can never really switch off. Maybe because you've just started one vet practice, maybe because you have to do your own out of hours due to either by choice or by cash flow issues, because you actually physically cannot pay someone else to do it because you just started practice. So these are all interesting things to think about. Or maybe you're an established practice, but you're finding it difficult to hire new graduates because all of them are not wanting to do out of hours, and you find that by contracting your out of hours out to another company, you attract better talent potentially, or better vets who actually, or just plainly vets that actually would join your workforce to continue the workload that you currently have. So these are all the sort of different challenges of which many people do not think of when they look at a vet practice. But the out of hours provision is rife with sort of pros and cons for both models, whether we do our own or whether we contract it out to other people to do. So it is very, very tricky. But right now here in sort of Teignbridge, we have got a few different vet practices here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to just tell people what are the out of hours coverage that each practices provide. So we've got practices like well-established practices like King Stainton. Their out of hours is provided by this company called Eves, which is Axonia Vet Emergency Services that is based in Exeter. Then we also have got vet practices like Vets for Pets in King Stainton. Their out of hours is provided by another vet practice up in Crediton. And we also have got Milestones, and from what I understand, they still provide their own out of hours locally. And that's all in King Stainton. In Newton Abbot, not too far away, we have got Powder and Vets, and from what I understand, they have combined together with Bay Vets down in Torbay, and also with Animal Health Centre down in Torquay to provide a combined out of hours. So it depends who is on call. You may be seen either at Powderham Vets itself in Newton Abbot, or in Torquay, which is another branch, or maybe somewhere in Torquay as well by one of the other vets from the other bigger practices. Then you have got Albany House, which is located right in the middle of Newton Abbot, and that is a branch from this bigger vet practice called Quarry House. They're out of hours, it's still sort of done locally, but it's usually in Torquay. Then you have got Amity Vets, which is located in Brunel Road in Newton Abbot. At this moment in time, we are still covering our own out of hours because we believe it's the right thing to do for our customers. And that's the provision of out of hours really. Who is right, who is wrong? Is there such a thing? What is more suitable, what is not? That is potentially the more appropriate question, because all these decisions are not made easily, and they all require quite deep thought, consideration, weighing out the pros and cons before making a decision like this. And generally, I like to believe that all vets, or all businesses in general, we want to provide what's the best for our customers. And sometimes making a very difficult choice to contract out of hours out may be the way we are able to do so in our provision of our customers' needs. And whether people agree or not, there's always pros and cons to everything. There's always two sides of the coin to that. So what I would usually advise people is have a chat with your vet. Have a chat with the vets that you go to. More importantly, you can ask yourself, what is important to you? What are you prepared to give up or not compromise in your choice of vets? And for those people who are wanting their own vets to do their own out of hours, maybe we just have to be more understanding that we are working in the day, and in the evening to be on call as well. It is a bit of a I would use the word compromise, but it does extend your work life. It does not disrupt your work-life balance and extend your sort of working mind onto the times when you're not working as well. Is that the best thing? So only time will tell. I hope you have found this video useful, and I look forward to see you in the next event.